All right, we just heard from Titans GM John Robinson. My sit-down with him from last week, getting set for the NFL draft. I don't know if you get a ton of insight there, but you do kind of get the feeling of where a GM thinks he sits with his team. I don't know if you can glean anything from that about what that means he's going to lean in the draft, but you do understand sort of the mission that they've been on. They've tried to retool this offense. Offensive line, finding playmakers. They've done some of that in this offseason. There's more work to be done. Defensively, they did a lot of that work last year. This year, it's about finding guys that can get them over the hump on that side of the ball because they think they have a championship defense already with 10 of those 11 guys back. But again, as you saw last year, you need extra bodies. You need that depth, and that's another thing that the Titans really have to develop here in this year's draft. Just a lot of good frontline players need some more depth on this team. So it is a very, very important draft. And there's some other discussions out there right now. Two guys who weren't there when they opened OTAs last week, A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill. What's up with that? What do you lead into it? A.J. Brown's talking to Deebo Samuel on Instagram Live. It's actually Deebo's mom's Instagram Live, and they're sitting in the background talking about their contract negotiations and how neither of their teams are going to pay them over $20 million, which they want. And so Samuel's already requested a trade from the 49ers. I don't think that's going to happen with A.J. Brown and the Titans, but every time you hear conversations like that or see another tweet, it has to make you wonder a little bit about the relationship there. And then you've got Ryan Tannehill not there with the team, promoted Instagram post last week. Probably wasn't taken last week, but it came out last week of him deep sea fishing when he could be at the facility. Now, does that mean anything? I don't know. But you know who might? We asked Jonathan Hutton, our guy from Outkick and our Titans insider on the Electric Power Company Sunday Sports Central last night. For more on the drama around organized team activities, we bring in our Titans insider and the host of Outkick 360, Jonathan Hutton. Jay Hutton, it's draft week, but the biggest story around the Titans right now is A.J. Brown. We know the Titans want him here long term, but when you see who he's responding to on Twitter or him openly discussing contract details with Deebo Samuel on Instagram Live, are you at all worried about this relationship long term between Brown and the Titans?
Steve, I'm not worried because I know both sides realize the situation here. A.J. knows his value, so do the Titans, and unless you play quarterback, you don't have that much leverage as an NFL player. So when you see some, you take advantage of it. And that's what A.J. is trying to do here, just like Deebo Samuel. And the leverage comes from other teams. Other teams being willing to trade and then sign that player to a massive contract. That's how the other contracts at wide receiver came about this offseason. And it's not about necessarily, Steve, where A.J. ranks to those players across the league. It's what he means to this team and what it would be like without him. And that's why the Titans are going to work on an extension instead of working on a way for his exit to take place.
As for Ryan Tannehill, I think we'll all agree that the sponsored Instagram post wasn't a great look when he's not here yet, especially the way last season ended. But in all seriousness, is there any impact at all by Tannehill not being here right now when they aren't even on the field?
No, there's not. The lasting impact for Tannehill right now is his terrible play in the postseason for this team. Let's be honest with that. Nothing he does or does not do in voluntary work will mean all that much whenever the season rolls around. But it's fair to take notice of it because it's voluntary. That's fair, too. He's posting a photo about being refreshed and being, as part of a sponsored ad. That's great. But he's the quarterback. And when he's not here for voluntary or mandatory work, it's worthy of discussion, especially given the fact that other captains are present in order to set a tone and accountability. And indications are that he's going to be around soon. But the questions that we have about him, that fans and everyone else has about him, that the team has about him, will not be answered until January, no matter where he is or is not in April.
Jay Hutt, good stuff, much more straight ahead. Yeah, like right now, because we've got the talk about those guys, but all of a sudden this week, all of the shift focuses on the draft. So what are the big areas of need? We got John Robinson's sort of feeling of the entire roster and the offseason plan. And now let's turn it over to JB and Jay Hutt about some of the real positions of need and maybe even a prediction for what we might see on Thursday night.
We are rejoined now by our Titans insider, Jonathan Hutton. And the Titans had some misses both in the draft and free agency up front in the O-line the past couple of years. So how would you like to see them address the offensive line next weekend? And who are some of the guys you think might fit in with how they like to play?
Well, where they're picking John at 26, they should have some options. Zion Johnson is a versatile guard who played center at the Senior Bowl. They know him well, with Tyler Vrabel being his roommate at Boston College. And other versatile players are Tyler Smith from Tulsa, Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. Both guys would give them options at guard and tackle on their offensive line. And both are likely to be right there on that late first, early second draft line. And you're right, but because of what has happened in the draft as of late, they've got to have some hits on the offensive line this weekend.
Well, you heard Steve talk with John Robinson about some of the free agency additions on offense. What else do the Titans need to do this weekend in the draft to address the offense?
Well, it's easy to look at wide receiver and see they need to add some speed and some athleticism to the position. I love the addition of Robert Woods, but he's coming off the ACL injury. Westbrook-Akina is fine. They can do better. And this is a solid draft for wide receiver, especially in the second and third round for all types. And I think the same goes for tight end. And even though they've added Austin Hooper, I think we all know that Tim Kelly and his background of that 12 personnel means they're going to use more two tight end sets. They'll be looking to address tight end.
How about defensively? This was a championship unit last year. Virtually everyone is back. That's good news, but you could never have enough good offensive players. What would you like to see the Titans do to address the defense this weekend?
Well, you can never have too many corners. They will add depth pieces at that position. This is also a pretty good draft for linebackers who play behind the ball, who can be a part of certain packages, rotations, and also provide some solid special teams play. I think corner, and I would look for inside linebacker on day number 3, JB.
JR has been known to do some wheeling and dealing around the draft. With no second-round pick at the moment, do you think he could be tempted maybe to move down from 26 and pick up some more draft capital?
The key is a team has to be willing to move up. That's number one. And that decision wouldn't be made until the first round is well underway, because you need to see how everything stacks up. But there will be scenarios for J-Rob to consider. My answer would be yes. The line to trade for me would be wide open, because the gap between 26 and then the early portion of round 2 as far as talent, to me, there's not that big of a drop-off, John. But the gap and the wait from 26 to 90, where they currently pick in the third round, that's a long wait. And adding an extra pick in between there by trading down could be valuable, especially if you're trying to target a very specific player or position like wide receiver or tight end.
All right, Jay Hutt, time to put you on the spot. Commissioner Jonathan Hutton steps to the podium to a chorus of boos, and he announces, with the 26th overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select.
Well, I've got my card in hand. I wish that it said Arkansas wide receiver Trey Burks at 26. I think it's a no-brainer if he's available, if he's pushed down to them. I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think Zion Johnson is there either, John. I think Dallas takes him at 20, and because of that, the Tennessee Titans select Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. He can play guard or tackle, and here's the key. I think he can start week 1 at left guard. That's why I would select Kenyon Green with the 26th pick, giving the options that I just laid out.
Jonathan Hutton, always our #1 pick on Sunday Sports Central. Jay Hutt, enjoy the draft. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Steve.